So I just saw A Quiet Place Part 2, and I liked it. I've always really loved the first movie, and so naturally I was excited for this. Naturally, I lowered my expectations a little bit, because I figured, okay, it probably won't be as great as the first movie, and it wasn't. But indeed, it was a worthy follow-up to a great film. The acting is strong across the board, and Millicent Simmons especially shines here. I will admit some of the performances were worse than they were in the first movie, but there isn't any outright bad acting here per se. Noah Jupe had a couple weak moments, but the rest of his performance more than made up for it. I liked the framing and shot composition choices, and the usage of color throughout the end of the movie was very well done. The CGI was fantastic throughout as expected. It's well edited. I think the music and sound design added a ton to the film. Marco Beltrami is just a masterful composer, and I'm glad that they brought him back from the first movie. And of course, in a movie like this, the sound design is key to a lot of the terror, and they were bang on with it. I think this movie is less scary than the first one, but it is still effectively tense throughout the entire runtime. Even when nothing bad has happened yet in the day one sequence, you are still shaking in your seat. And it seems like the day one sequence and the train scene later on that managed to instill the same type of dread that the first movie managed to. One of the things I loved about A Quiet Place is that a lot of the fear is constant because you can tell something bad is going to happen and you're just waiting for it. The tension never lets up, and when it finally reaches the point you've been waiting for, it is horrifying. And then it jumps straight back into that same tension again, but amped up even more. And that's added to by the fact that every event in that movie is taking place all at once. It's a culmination of different terrors building across the same location, just in different areas with different characters. And that same feeling is where a lot of the best horror in A Quiet Place Part 2 comes from. What weakens it slightly is that a lot of the scenes are less something bad is about to happen and more why are you doing this, you're going to die. Yes, it's still tense and scary, but instead of having this look out feeling for the characters, it's more why are you doing this. Especially with one character in particular who just makes a bunch of terrible decisions for no clear reason. Another reason that A Quiet Place works so well is its lack of dialogue and how it adds to the tension. Spoken dialogue is used at an absolute minimum in that movie, because every character in the movie can speak sign language, and also it adds to the tension by a ton. Whereas in this movie, there's a lot of unnecessary dialogue. Like, yes, I understand that there are characters in this movie who don't speak sign language, and I actually really like the dynamic between Millicent Simmons and Cillian Murphy's characters in that respect. But there are scenes where characters who do speak sign language are having conversations and are whispering and talking for some reason, instead of using sign language or even just mouthing to each other. There is a conversation between a character who speaks sign language and the deaf character in this movie, and they are trying to have a quiet conversation so the other characters cannot hear them, and they choose to whisper. And you know what? I'm willing to bet it's because audiences don't like subtitles. I am willing to bet that Paramount got audience feedback and gave it to John Krasinski to say, hey, have more dialogue in the movie because reading is hard. I am aware that some people have legitimate issues with subtitled films, but most of you are just lazy. Fight me in the comments, I don't care. Speaking of things related to the first movie, there is a gigantic plot hole around the second to third act of the movie, and you cannot ignore it if you've seen the first. Besides that, and a certain character making stupid decisions for no reason whatsoever, I think this movie's plot held together pretty well. I cared about most of the characters, there was always a sense of actual weight to everything that happened. The production and costume design is fantastic, I think there's a nice sense of build-up throughout the film. The ending is very good, but it could have been better if a few things were tweaked. Firstly, if, like in the first movie, everything was happening at the same time, I feel like there would be some more tension than there is. There are a few events intercut together that are taking place at different times, but somehow managed to line up just in time for the end of the film's timeline. I don't know, I feel like that could have been better handled or better communicated even. I also wish the last minute or so just stayed in one place because it kinda intercuts a very earned and deserved and satisfying ending with one that is not remotely earned or deserved or satisfying. But on the whole, I think this is a worthy sequel to A Quiet Place and just a damn good horror film. This is easily one of the best things you could be seeing in cinemas just now, so check it out, and also check out the first movie if you haven't already, that one's even better. And I'm giving A Quiet Place Part 2 a 7 out of 10. It is closer to an 8 than a 6, but I'm giving it a 7. That's the end of this video. Like, share, subscribe, check out my music available on all streaming services. I'm bad at outros, and I'll see you in whatever I do next.